Beverley is in the East Riding of Yorkshire. Here is York, and Beverley is to the east almost all the way to Hull. Regarded by many as being the most beautiful church in Europe, Beverley surely stands its ground even when compared to many cathedral churches. Remarkably, the building has coherent form. I say remarkably because A, its construction was spread over 200 years, and B, during that period, 3 different styles were current. The east end and transepts are in the early English period. The nave was commenced in the decorated period and finished at the west end in perpendicular. Work on the present structure began in 1220. The previous building had been almost totally destroyed when its central tower collapsed around 1213. We enter by the north door and are looking along the north aisle. But just have a closer look at these carvings here. As you can see, what we have is a host of what I presume are heavenly angels, each playing a musical instrument. We've met this host before, and I know this might sound like a daft question, but can anybody tell me a bit more about them? I mean, I can see why they would carve evangelists, apostles, disciples, but why musicians? There must be a message here that, okay, perhaps I ought to know already. Also, can anybody tell me what these white lines are on these pictures? The original institution had been founded as a monastery by St. John of Beverley around 700 AD. The 12th century Norman font has a canopy dating from 1726. The institution grew and underwent several rebuildings. One rebuild, after a serious fire of 1188, is the one which had the overambitious central tower which collapsed around 1213. With regard to these buildings collapsing, which we have come across several times before, it may be worth noticing that these builders were working at the frontier of known practice. They were, in many cases, making it up as they went along, almost experimenting. This reredos is 14th century, restored 1826. With regard to that monastic institution founded by St. John of Beverley in the 8th century, well, it probably perished during the invasions by the Scandinavians, for which we still haven't had an apology, incidentally. However, in 934 AD, King Athelstan was on his way north to sort out the Scots and stopped here at Beverley. He laid his dagger on the altar of what would have been the church of the Benedictine monastery. He left his dagger on the altar as a pledge that he intended to endow this church so that it could be served by secular canons rather than the monks of the closed Benedictine order. This pledge was no doubt conditional on his mission to Scotland being successful. The point of the story to this film is that the term used for such secular establishments is the Old English word for monastery, which is Minster. The choir stalls are early 16th century, and the misericords are worth close inspection. On your visit you can see the tomb of St. John of Beverley and also that of Henry Percy, 4th Earl of Northumberland. Another tomb, which is called the Percy tomb, is the resting place of one of the Earl's relatives. It has been described as one of the glories of European art. There is so much more to see here, and I haven't even mentioned the treadmill crane up in the attic, which you can go up and see by arrangement. I didn't manage it. And so we come back to the west door. The oak panels are representations of the four evangelists with their recognisable symbols below. They were made in the early 18th century and are attached to much earlier doors and believed to have been done during a restoration of the building under Nicholas Hawksmoor. The figures in the niches around the doors are more recent. So that's Beverley Minster, and I recommend a visit.